Every 3 months, I run a €50 competitive Commander tournament, and they're always a ton of fun. The most recent one was in early December, and it was our biggest tournament to date. 32 participants, which I am very happy about, and it also was the most difficult tournament so far because I added a top cut round. For a player to win the tournament, they first have to play 3 preliminary rounds, do well enough to make it into the top cut, then make it into the finals, and then win the finals. All in all, this takes 8 to 9 hours. It's a rough gauntlet. Also, I want to start calling this bracket 50? Is that a good name? I'll try it for this video. You tell me if you like it. Originally, my plan was to showcase the tournament winning deck list. However, there's a small problem with that. I won, and I did it with a deck I already showed you all. Well, not entirely. Edge of Eternities is my favorite Magic the Gathering set, and I've been thinking a lot about why, but we can talk about that some other time. My favorite character in Edge of Eternities is Sammy, and when they were given a fantastic card in Sammy Wildcat Captain, I immediately became obsessed with it. So I built a budget deck for the card and made a video about it right after it was released. But despite the video being done, I still couldn't get Sammy out of my head, and so for the next couple of months, I just kept building the deck. I learned a lot by spending so much time on just a single list, and it paid off when tournament day came around. I won 4 out of 5 matches, including the finals. But you see, that puts me into a bit of an awkward situation. I wanted to make a video about the tournament winning deck, but I already kind of did. Now, some of you might remember a similar situation from a couple of months before that. I built a budget deck for and made a video about the fish, and then a friend of mine managed to win the tournament with it. You see the similarities, right? There's a pattern emerging. So, the next budget tournament is coming up in about 1 month, on the 15th of March, hosted in Gießen at Deck, Dice and Dungeons. If you're interested in joining, head to budgetcommander.de for all of the information. You can also find both the winning fish list and my winning Sammy build over on that website. So if you're looking for those, they are there. Today, I want to channel this pattern, summoning another tournament victory, by telling you about the deck I've been cooking for this upcoming event. And I gotta tell you, it's a spicy one. The biggest lesson I took away from my obsession with Sammy is that I draw a lot of value out of my obsessions. They keep me interested in what I'm doing, and that lets me spend a lot of energy on both deck building and, even more importantly, testing the deck. You cannot get a good deck if you do not test it. I didn't mind playing the 50th test game with Sammy, and that to me is a big reason why I managed to build something that worked. And well, my current obsession is Omniscience. Omniscience is a blue enchantment with a fairly simple ability. We may cast spells from our hand without paying their mana cost. What a stupid card. Is that not the dumbest shit you've ever heard? It's wonderful. Once this thing is in play, we win the game. We don't need to worry about how, we can freely pick and choose our approach, so we can actually leave that part for later. But to get there, we need to fix a different, tiny problem. This bad boy costs 10 mana. 10 mana! That is just too much. It's absolutely infeasible that we would ever be able to spend 10 mana on a spell in a tournament setting. And that's assuming we even draw it. Which brings up a budget-specific issue. This thing is €5. If we put it into our deck, we really gotta make sure we have a way to draw and play it. Spending €5 on a very powerful card in your deck is generally fine, so long as when you draw that card, you actually get your money's worth. Alright, so we already know casting it is out of the question, that just won't happen. So we need to find a way to cheat it into play. My first thought was to try reanimating it, similar to how the standard Abuelo's Awakening plus Omniscience deck worked. There's a decent number of cards that can reanimate enchantments like Open the Vault and Rescue Skiff, but the issue here is that, of course, for this plan, we still have to find the thing and then throw it into the graveyard and then hope it doesn't get removed out of the graveyard. If there's a Rest in Peace in play, we are screwed, and stacks is a popular strategy in tournaments, so we kind of have to expect it. There are just a lot of additional vulnerabilities involved here, and I don't like that. If I'm going for a win, I want it to be easy and low commitment, so that if it doesn't work, I don't instantly lose the game. This was actually one of my biggest initial problems with Sammy. I had built the deck to a point where if I managed to get Sammy onto the board with just one open mana, I could very likely finish the game on the spot. But naturally, my opponents would keep counterspells and removal open to stop me from doing that. My fix was Silence, a spell that stops our opponents from casting spells for the turn. Silence let me poke for a win instead of committing. It forced my opponents to either counter the Silence, and then I could judge their reactions to see if I still wanted to try to win or if I'd rather let it sit for the moment, or if they didn't counter it, well, then I was good to go. Silence, and its other counterparts that didn't only play one copy of Silence, were a low-commitment win attempt that kept my chances open when it didn't work. It could also function as interaction in emergencies. My next idea for the Omniscience deck was to use Illuna, Apex of Vicious. This is a 5-mana 6/6 with flying and trample that can mutate for 6 mana, which means that we put it on top of another creature we control and then they share abilities or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Point being, we need a non-human in play to mutate, and if we do, Illuna's last ability triggers, which lets us exile cards from the top of our library until we find a non-land permanent and put it directly into play. This means if the only non-land permanent in our deck is Omniscience, then we just get an Omniscience. We don't have to draw it, we don't have to cast it. We can just put a token into play, mutate Illuna on top of it, and then we win. The rest of the deck would be interaction, ramp, lots of card draw, and some token makers because, well, we can't play any creatures. This could work, but Illuna kind of sucks. Unlike other similar effects, Illuna doesn't return the exiled cards to our deck. If our Omniscience is at the bottom of our deck, then there's a very realistic chance we could permanently exile all of our win conditions before we find it. Illuna also makes our deck kind of ass. We can't play any permanents, and that is really limiting. And while Illuna does fit the criteria of letting us try for a win multiple times if it gets countered, if our opponents instead get rid of the creature we're trying to mutate on top of, Illuna will simply enter without triggering its mutate ability, and we are left with a useless beater until we kill it ourselves. 6 mana also isn't great, although I'm willing to forgive that because we are in good colors for ramping, so we should be able to make that work. On the whole, I don't believe in Illuna, but I do like the plan. It reminds me a lot of Polymorph. Polymorph effects are ones that destroy a permanent and then flip through the deck until they find a card with the same card type and put it into play. Hiding Omniscience in the deck and casting it through other spells seems to be the way to go. There are a lot of Polymorph cards, that's not a rarity at all, but there are only 3 that can find an enchantment: Reality Scramble, Chaotic Transformation, and Reweave. That immediately tells us that we at least is it, which is fantastic. I've grown very fond of red over the last few months because it's capable of accelerating very quickly, which can be leveraged into explosive win attempts. If it comes to bracket 50, I'd argue that red and blue are the strongest colors, so Izzet is the best pairing. If we want to Reality Scramble into Omniscience, we first need an enchantment in play. There's one commander called the Rani that creates an aura enchantment token whenever it enters or attacks, which we could use as a target, but it ties the enchantment to a creature, so our opponents could kill that creature in response, which is a lot easier than killing an enchantment, and also the Rani just doesn't do anything outside of that. Another option is the Prismatic Bridge, but 5 color is very difficult in bracket 50, and also this is a notoriously scary card. Our opponents would focus on it even without Polymorph, and for good reason. And also, do we really want to reweave a Prismatic Bridge if we somehow manage to get it into play? I feel like at that point we could just leave it and farm it for value. And if we do Polymorph it, then we are paying a premium for Omniscience. Like, Reweave plus Prismatic Bridge is actually 11 mana. And that just doesn't really make it all seem worth it. We want our sacrificial enchantment to be easy to get into play and cheap. That brings us to our final option: backgrounds. Battle for Baldur's Gate introduced a set of monocolored commanders that could be paired with an enchantment, a background, as a secondary commander. This background then gives the primary commander additional abilities while in play. Now there's a couple here that we can immediately rule out because they're just too expensive for bracket 50. Passionate Archaeologist and Karlach, Fury of Avernus would be great, but we can't afford them. We can also disregard any background that costs more than 2 mana, because we're planning on tossing it anyways. And we want our commander to be quite cheap as well, ideally 3 mana so that we can curve into it. Our commander is still an important part of our deck. We should try to get some use out of them, so we can also disregard all commanders that just don't really do anything. This leaves us with exactly 4 cards: Guild Artisan, Clancrafter, Gale Waterdeep Prodigy, and Volo Itinerant Scholar. Unfortunately, both of our commander options are blue, so we can't play Clancrafter as a background, making us default to Guild Artisan. Guild Artisan is actually fantastic for this deck. It has our commander create 2 treasure tokens when it attacks our opponent with the most life. This gives us a brutal curve. We can play Guild Artisan, then our commander, and then attack with our commander the following turn. This generates 2 treasures and gives us a guaranteed 6 mana on turn 4. This is enough for us to cast Reweave or Chaotic Transformation, or even better, cast Reality Scramble with Counterspell backup. Every step is perfectly efficient, and bracket 50 is slow enough that we can just kind of do that in the early game. Yes, sometimes people will go for win attempts even before that point, but that's rare. We tend to be able to go into turn 4 safely. We get a smooth curve, and we already have the enchantment we need in play. And then, on turn 4, if we have 4 lands and drew one of our 3 polymorphs, we can instantly win the game. Usually, when I hear something like that, I think to myself, yeah, in Magical Christmas Land. But this isn't a 3-card combo that we need to put a lot of effort into assembling and that is then easily interrupted. This is a 1-card combo. The other 2 are in the deck and in the command zone. And even if it's interrupted, that's fine. We can just try again later. Guild Artisan is never going away permanently, and we have multiple polymorphs. We also don't have to go for the win right away. Guild Artisan is repeated mana advantage, and both of the commander options provide card advantage. Since our win condition is an easily castable 1-card combo, we can build the rest of the deck to play into our commanders, make it into a value engine interaction pile, with the only goal being to extend the game until we eventually win. Let's choose between Gale and Volo. Gale Waterdeep Prodigy is a 1/3 that, whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell from our hand, lets us cast a spell of the other type from our graveyard. This is a pretty powerful effect that lets us double up on our spells, and gives us a good way to spend mana if we have Omniscience out. Without Omniscience, however, this ability is quite expensive, because we have to pay mana for both spells. 1/3 is also awkwardly small. It makes it easy to double block Gale to kill him when we are attacking to get our treasures. Volo Itinerant Scholar performs a lot better in that regard. He's a 2/3, which makes him much more likely to trade when blocked, and that means he doesn't usually get blocked. He also has very useful and strange other abilities. When he enters, he creates Volo's Journal, a hexproof artifact that, whenever we cast a creature spell, lets us write down a creature type of that creature that we haven't written down before. Volo himself can then tap for 2 mana to draw a card for each noted type. I found it very difficult to estimate how strong this effect is without having tested it, but I've played a couple of games with it now, and I can tell you, this is the budget One Ring. In long matches, Volo regularly draws me 5 or more cards per turn, which is absurd and game-winning. Early on, Volo farms us treasures while we passively build up notes on the journal, and once Volo can't attack anymore, he becomes a god-tier card draw engine that also interacts well with Omniscience. With Omniscience in play, we can poop out all the creatures in our deck, and that fuels Volo to draw us even more cards. Then we can also include untappers like Vizier of Tumbling Sands, Show Up, and Octopus Form to use Volo multiple times in a single turn. Once Omniscience is in play, all of our spells are free, and cards like Unexpected Windfall and Big Score even generate additional mana. We need a way to use that mana, and Volo is great for that. His ability also not only works through Rule of Law, but plays very well against it, and that's always an important consideration. Alright, we found our commanders. Volo, Itinerant Scholar, alongside Guild Artisan. Now, I know that this was a lot of words just to arrive at our commanders, which most other deck techs will give you right at the start, and they wouldn't bother with all of this explanation. But I wanted us to go on this journey to make sure that we properly understand the role and purpose of our commanders and how they tie the deck together. Most commander decks start with the commander, which is by no means inherently bad, but I think it's important to see and understand that there are other approaches to deck building with at least as much merit. And since we already put so much thought into just getting to the starting line, building the rest of the deck becomes substantially easier because we already know what we are looking for. First, let's find some win conditions. We already know that this deck is going to include a reasonable number of creatures, because we need them for Volo, so combat damage is always an option. EZ also has access to lots of game-winning, easy-to-use 2-card combos. Dualcaster Mage and Electro Duplicate let us create infinite Dualcaster Mages and kill through combat. Stormkiln Artist and Haze of Rage generate infinite treasures and make our board have infinite power. And Niv-Mizzet Parun can be soul bonded with Tandem Lookout to draw our entire deck and ping our opponents to death. Unfortunately, we can't play Curiosity because, keep in mind, we can't play any other enchantments. Or artifacts. There's a problem with our Omniscience plan that I'm sure you already noticed. What if we draw the thing? Well, to be honest, that kind of sucks. In very long matches we might be able to cast it, but we are not counting on that. Rather, in those scenarios we should probably just pitch it to an Unexpected Windfall or abandon attachments and try to assemble one of our many other combos. But then our polymorphs are dead too, and that sucks. So I've chosen to include a backup plan in the form of God Pharaoh's Statue. God Pharaoh's Statue is a 6-mana artifact that makes all spells our opponents cast cost 2 more mana and drains them for 1 life at the end of our turn. We can polymorph a treasure to find it, or worst case scenario, our journal, although we really don't want to, the journal is quite valuable. God Pharaoh's Statue doesn't win us the game in the same way Omniscience does, but it severely hinders our opponents and puts us into a powerful position. It's also only 6 mana, which is an important benchmark because it means we can cast it on turn 4, which is devastating if it resolves. And Chaotic Transformation actually lets us polymorph multiple things. We can find both Omniscience and God Pharaoh's Statue all at once, which is disgusting. So for those reasons, the deck also only plays 1 artifact. We also have another out to Omniscience getting stuck in our hand, Flood of Tears. Flood of Tears is a 6-mana sorcery that returns all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. And then, if we return 4 or more permanents to our hand this way, which is pretty likely, we play a good number, we may put a permanent card from our hand directly onto the battlefield. This could be our Omniscience, but also other 1-card wincons like Hullbreaker Horror or Tightspout Tyrant. We can also include Niv-Mizzet Parun in that list. If any of these land on the field, our opponents are in for World of Hurt, and if we get multiple, then the game is essentially over. Omniscience with Hullbreaker Horror or Tightspout Tyrant in play lets us ruin our opponent's board states as we dig through our deck. If we have both, then we can even infinitely replay 2 of our other creatures and bounce all of our opponent's permanents, including their lands. And Niv-Mizzet Parun rapidly digs through our deck even as our opponents try to interact. If we are somehow still lacking a wincon, then we got Beacon of Tomorrows, an 8-mana sorcery that lets us take an extra turn before shuffling itself back into our deck. We can just keep digging, finding it, and keep the stream of Volo activations going. I think you see the vision at this point. There's no shortage of wincons. And most importantly, all of these cards, except for Haze of Rage, are also good in isolation. There's nothing wrong with casting a Dualcaster Mage to copy an Unexpected Windfall or throwing Stormkiln Artist onto the board to generate additional treasures. We don't need Niv-Mizzet to combo to be good, and we don't need Omniscience to cast him. We get to 6 mana very easily, and a turn 4 Niv-Mizzet puts out a lot of pain. All of our cards are simultaneously dangerous, but not essential. The essence of this deck is a value pile that constantly generates resources, is willing to fight for on-board presence, and even accepts the vast majority of stacks, and can still at any moment go for difficult to stop, low commitment win attempts. So let's talk about the value cards then, but before that, please don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and check out my Patreon where you can support me directly. I would greatly appreciate that. Professional Facebreaker is one of the singular strongest cards in Commander, and by itself a reason to play red. I love the stinky little looters: Malcolm, Alluring Scoundrel, Shoreline Looter, Warf, Infiltrator, and Looter Il-Kor are easy to cast, generate guaranteed value every turn, and give us funky creature types for our journal. Neheb, Dreadhorde Champion, and Yusri, Fortune's Flame somewhat fit into that same category, although calling them looters is a bit disingenuous. We also play some spell interactive creatures. Archmage Emeritus and Archmage of Runes are fantastic if we manage to stick them, and due to our inbuilt mana acceleration, that isn't as difficult as it might seem. They also act as combo pieces with Omniscience because they mostly guarantee that we can dig through our entire deck. Goblin Electromancer and Stormcatch Manta are a bit more clunky, but give us good types and play nicely during our build-up period. Then we got Volatile Stormdrake, Tandem Lookout, Kitesail Larcenist, Wingcrafter, and Ghostly Pilferer for a range of interaction, types, and other shenanigans. As for sorceries and instants, we got a handful of counterspells, a bunch of sweepers, targeted removal, small draw, and big draw. I particularly like Spellgyre in this list. It's a bit of an expensive counterspell at 4 mana, but we can fix that with our small and big cost reducers. And it has the optional mode of letting us surveil 2 and draw 2, which is a deep look into the deck and can often find the missing piece when we are going for a win. For you other budget gamers, I would also greatly recommend Ghostfire Slice and Long River's Pull, both fantastic interactive pieces that are very cheap monetarily. I already mentioned some untappers, but we play a couple more. Wrangle is the 2-mana sorcery that gains control of target creature with power 4 or less until end of turn, untaps it and gives it haste. I know this looks like the most draft garbage you've seen in your life, but it actually has 3 different purposes it can fulfill in this deck. We can use it to untap Volo and draw additional cards, or to give Volo haste if we needed to recast him that turn, or to steal something valuable from our opponents and then run it into a different opponent so they can block and kill it. You know, if you snatch a Magda and then run it at somebody, they'll often throw whatever they got in front of it. Sometimes that's even going to result in a 2-for-1. It's genuinely fantastic, and I can't believe that I'm saying that about Wrangle. Look at this stinky thing. Another surprisingly powerful card is Hidden Strings, which for 2 mana taps or untaps 2 permanents and then gets encoded onto a creature we control, which means that whenever this creature deals combat damage, we get to Hidden Strings again. Because this spell costs 2 mana and untaps 2 things, it can inherently be free, and then lets us create 2 more mana every single turn. And that's just the baseline. We can use it to make sure that our Volo can attack without getting blocked, or just for additional Volo activations. I think you can see how it all fits together, how our value plays have the potential to be interaction or even win attempts. During tournaments, I often see players kind of just sitting in the back, trying to collect their Exodia pieces in hand while not pursuing any other game plans. And I think that's foolish. Getting on the board and being active, pushing the game forward, generating advantage, and frankly, playing Magic is how you win in bracket 50. 2 more cards I would like to talk about. Lunar Insight is a 3-mana sorcery that draws us a card for each different mana value among non-land permanents we control. Our commanders alone already give us 3 different mana values, the journal being mana value 0. Baseline, this is a 3-mana draw 3, which is fine. Not great, but fine. Later in the game though, Lunar Insight can often draw 5, 6, 7 cards. Omniscience having mana value 10 really helps there. Will of the Timur is a 6-mana sorcery that lets us choose one. We can either create a token that's a copy of target permanent, except it's a 4/4 dragon with flying. Or we can make target player draw cards equal to the greatest mana value among permanents we control. But if we control our commander, then we get to choose both. The funny thing is that Guild Artisan counts for this. We basically always have a commander in play, and then Will of the Timur is a powerful card draw piece that also brings additional utility. And if we have Omniscience, it draws us 10 cards while creating a second win piece or even a second Omniscience as backup. It's expensive, I'll give you that, but it's performed amazingly. This entire deck has been fantastic in my testing. At first glance, it seems a bit like a loosely thrown together is a good stuff pile, but its synergies stretch across so many different cards, while all being connected to an incredibly powerful core idea that is difficult to disrupt. It might seem like you could just counter the enchantment and kill Volo, but those kinds of plays tend to be very weak. The moment our commanders come down is early, and if you're not using that time to establish your own strategy, you'll fall far behind, especially if you're spending resources dealing with cards that don't represent an immediate win. This deck can win on turn 4, but it usually doesn't. I've had plenty of games where I had the Polymorph in hand, ready to go, but I waited because I can also play the long game, whereas my opponents will eventually run out of resources. And once they did, my win was much more secure. There's a greater lesson here that I want to impart upon you. It's much easier to win in Commander than it is to stop your opponents from winning. And that's just because they are free opponents. You can't stop all of them by yourself. Focusing on your own strategy is better than trying too hard to interact. That's not to say that interaction isn't valuable. Sometimes you will have to counterspell their win, but blasting those interactive pieces without explicit purpose will often lead to not being able to protect your own win, or somebody else goes for it and you aren't ready for it. If you're interested in this deck list, then you can find it on my Patreon. In the future, I'll share the full deck list for everyone, promise, but that's going to have to wait until the tournament is over. I don't want to make it too easy for my opponents by giving every detail away this early, especially since I'm still building and refining. And to be honest, I think I've told you enough that you can piece together about 95% of the list on your own. I play 38 lands if that helps. Alright, before closing this out, one other thing. I know I just disappeared for a bit there, and then we came back with a huge video unlike anything else that we made on the channel, being the Avatar video. I actually really like that video, I'm very proud of it, but ultimately I still think that was a bit of a mistake. I'm soon going to delete the Avatar video and re-upload it on a new channel. That new channel will also be the home for Book 2, Book 3, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, our current plans for those kinds of videos. This channel here, Commander Baumi, will go back to what it was before, but with a less frequent upload schedule. In case you're not familiar with my personal history, I've been making videos on the internet for a very, very long time. And part of that was always a very rigid schedule. And I had been doing that so long that I just kind of needed to stop, otherwise it would drive me completely crazy. So I kind of shut down my previous channels, then we started the Magic channel here, and then we immediately fell into a rigid schedule. You see the problem, right? So we're trying a bit of a different approach now. We're gonna have the 2 channels and we're just working on these at our own pace, making videos when we feel it's appropriate and when I feel I have something to say. I hope that's okay. There's still going to be videos quite regularly. I hope. That's the plan anyways. So if you enjoyed this one, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. There's a link down in the description and you can support me there directly. And I'll let you know about the new channel as soon as it's ready. It's not quite ready yet, but I'll let you know as soon as it's ready. Anyways, I'll see you guys. Goodbye.